Good morning, PoddyC fans. Welcome to one of our episodes. We've got a very special guest this week. I'm not going to spoil it, although the title and the thumbnail probably spoils it, but there's a good intro coming up for that. But there have been some current events and stuff, you know, the Brutosaur, those kind of things, that you'd think would maybe get talked about in this PoddyC episode, and they aren't, because this was recorded before a lot of that, and also we had a guest that, you know, so we were talking with him about stuff, and that was cool, that was fun. So if you're interested in that sort of current event discussion, come to our streams, our YouTubes, or we talk about it a little bit in our Patreon bonus episode, which you can go and check out as well, if you'd like, as well, and give us some money there. Although, my understanding is that a lot of people are $90 poorer than they were recently, so maybe you got to cut back on those Patreon-related expenses. So, I don't know, you got to make your own decision. Either way, enjoy the show.
All right, Dratnos, do you want to get us started?
Yeah, welcome to episode 46 of the PoddyC. This week, our guest has been described as the biggest star in esports besides Max, PC UK's Gamer of the Year, the face of StarCraft, two-time runner-up, one-time winner of the World Cyber Games USA qualifiers.
Okay.
Winner.
Gosh, like my heart, my little pitter-pattering, we get to talk about Brutor. This is amazing. Sorry.
We're less than halfway through. This is going to take a while. Can we have no interruptions? This is a long resume. Winner of the WCG Pan American Championship. Countless tournaments commentated and hosted. He was also featured, presumably quite a long time ago now, on the Forbes 30 Under 30. And he was the first guy to ever have a sub button on Twitch.
The last one's crazy.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
My sub ID is 2.
Okay, so
wait, who's
one
won?
test account? Twitch test. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like that test. So
You're the first of our
runner-up to
kind.
that, baby. Yeah.
So, as people know, we have Day9 with us today, which was a huge goal for us to have you on here. Not even just as WoW players, just as just one of the most OG streamers on the platform, and I know you did have a foray into WoW recently, but obviously have a very long relationship with Blizzard, so we're just super happy to chop it up with you today.
Well, thank you so much for the kind intro, the kind words. And, you know, I've been joking about this with some of my buddies recently because I'm just now starting to socialize more in the last year since the pandemic started. That so often, if you're like a streamer or a YouTuber or creator in general, you're like alone in a room yelling at a webcam a lot of the time. And it's just really nice to start to reconnect to people and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, there's all these awesome people that have this history with these games where, you know, I know I'm not alone. I grew up playing Blizzard games. Most of my friends I met through that. I met my wife doing that kind of work. So it's great to be here. Thanks so much, guys.
Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I was going to say, we should probably give him an idea of who we are, because I don't...
Who are you?
Yeah,
Let's pretend I know nothing.
All right, Dratnos, start. Tell him about yourself.
Okay, yeah, I'm Dratnos. I'm mostly WoW stuff for the past 6 or so years. Although before that, I was into Magic the Gathering. I had a Magic the Gathering podcast for a bit there. So that was fun. That's a game that I know you've done some stuff in. So I've seen you, I think, commentating some Magic things too.
Oh yeah.
Very cool. And then yeah, I've been playing WoW since the Burning Crusade. Long time ago.
Was that 2005?
2007 or
6,
something.
I believe.
Yeah, that was when
6
I
or
started.
7.
Yeah. So in middle school, a good time. Yeah. And I do I do the Race the World First and other WoW esports commentating stuff. So that's me.
Definitely on the higher end, too. He raids in like a very, very high level WoW guild as well. Top 20 in the world recently finished.
That's right.
Hey, grats. You know, the Race to World
Nice.
First is something that, like, I am only just learning about in, like, the last 6 to 8 months.
It's so
I started
cool.
Playing WoW.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, yeah. And then he's also the proud owner of a dinosaur pillow, which he displays behind him as well.
That's right.
God, that's
Very
a great
beautiful.
pillow.
And I've got my blanket as well. Because it's, dude, I always get cold whenever I wake up early. I don't know about you guys. I think this is a normal thing, but
Yeah.
you know, you wake up early, which again, it is 10. It's
Fancy
10 a.m. It's
cardigan.
not that early, but it's early for
No,
WoW
but for us,
Dude,
for us,
we were
this is the
joking.
earliest we've been
Yeah.
on all week.
Yeah,
Maybe
we were
even
joking.
all month.
We were joking with him right before we started, and we're like, dude, I wonder if he lives like so far away from me, or if he's an adult and he's actually just such an adult. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I got up at 6 today. Normally I try to shoot for 7:30, but I was feeling chipper.
Yeah, he even joked that maybe to get in the spirit of WoW, we should have held this much later in the day after a nice sleep in.
Start recording at 1 a.m.
Yeah,
We have unironically done that.
we have unironically
Yeah.
done that.
That is our regular recording schedule.
I think we normally start around like 10:30 or 11 Pacific time, which we probably should work on that honestly too. Okay, so for me, so if you just learn about the race, so that's mainly my thing. I've streamed for I think like 4 to 5 years now, but I got into it because of the race. I do daily streams where I actually just talk. I like don't even play games as much anymore, well, I actually have recently, and wow, I actually just really enjoy the conversation aspect you can have with a lot of people, and that's really what makes me want to turn my stream on every day. And I'd love to talk to you about that later as well, like the balance between those two things. And then we just won the recent race, which was really cool and fun. And then we outside of that, I think that's pretty much it for me. Dorki, what's your bit?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of a resume here, so I'm basically what we call nowadays a VTuber. I somehow stumbled upon this. It was not intended whatsoever. And
Wait, you stumbled into it like you.
well, like I just started streaming one day and people really enjoyed my content. And I just always had like a chat blocker that was like a cat. And that was kind of my bit. So people kind of just like connected that with my stream. I'm sure you've probably seen streamers similar, kind of like Lyric, right?
Yeah, well, I've tried to set up VTubing software, and it's like
wait, really?
Very pain in the ass. Yeah,
yeah. So I'm not actually a VTuber, but like I just have like a PNG, and like that's kind of my bit. But I'm probably like the most hardcore of gamers here because we just have like Mr. Caster Dratnos here and Mr. Maximum who just talks on stream all day. That's me.
Dude, okay.
Yeah,
when
you
say
play
hardcore
WoW
gamer,
all day.
Yeah,
He plays WoW all day, and he's a
WoW.
huge Mythic Plus gamer. Like I would be way. Sorry,
Does Day9 even know what Mythic Plus even means?
That is such a great question because the answer is I have no clue at all. But
Oh,
I wasn't
wow.
going to ask. I was going to try to just lean through social cues and try to laugh at the appropriate times, like someone who's the only guy at the party who doesn't know anyone.
Well, I'm the cool. I'm basically the cool guy, and these guys are the ones who
I was
like,
going to
do
say,
all the
as
lame
soon
stuff.
as we said Mythic Plus, that would have been a good cue to laugh. If we probably didn't.
No. It's the other way around. It's the other way around.
It's like, you ever played Mario Party where there's a bunch of like mini games that.
Okay, dude.
It's like WoW's version of like one of those little mini games, but then there's randomly just a bunch of people that take it really seriously.
It's the opposite. He's coping. Don't worry about what he has to say.
So, like, how would you describe Mythic Plus then?
Mythic Plus is like, I'm trying to think. It's like a progression system that you can have with dungeons that's unlike any other game. No other game offers this. The closest thing would be Rifts in Diablo. Have you played Diablo much?
Yeah.
I know you're like a big Blizzard guy. Yeah. Wait, which is actually crazy, by the way. I know this is kind of like a tangent, but how did you not play World of Warcraft despite being a Blizzard guy?
Okay, so we're going to have to rewind back to young Sean. And so I'm 38 now. And I started playing StarCraft in 1998 when I was I? I'm going to have to do live math on air. I was 12. Okay. And so as I'm going to share these, I want to be very clear. I think we've all had this experience where you think of thoughts you had when you were younger, and it's like tapping into the thoughts of a psychopath, where you've changed so much and evolved so much of your opinions. Because when I was younger, the idea of StarCraft being a hard game, I was obsessed with. I loved the fact that it was so hard. Because, it's one of those kinds of games where you'd be able to, I don't know, be at a school event, mention StarCraft, and someone goes, "Oh, I play StarCraft, we should play." And you could like 3-on-1 people and win easily just because that game has so much like mechanical depth and richness to it. And for, the younger viewers, Twitch dropped in like 2011-ish. YouTube dropped in 2005 and had like a hard ban on gaming content for years. So the pro scene in like 2000, 2001 for StarCraft in South Korea, you had to get like bootleg VLC streams or download like the GOM TV player just to be able to watch and learn about these pro matches. And so for me, being like an early internet adopter, finding forums of other people that played StarCraft, where again, I wasn't having connections with people at school about it as much. But all of a sudden you could find these awesome people online. You could start watching the pro scene and you could marvel at, hey, if I'm this much better than my peers at school, these people that I'm watching are 10 times better than I am. Because, I mean, you can see the timer in the game. Hey, we're 10 minutes into the match, and they have 3 times as much stuff as I normally have at 10 minutes. How is that even possible? But, of course, you couldn't get access to the replay, so you just would kind of have to sit there and wonder. And so I spent years and years and years and years and years just studying and learning and playing StarCraft to the point where when I got to college and World of Warcraft came out, it was blowing up, right? It was this huge cultural moment where, at least at my college it was, where people joke about not going to class because WoW is so fun and they just want to stay up all night playing it. Like seeing people go from not playing WoW to then starting playing it because it had just released, it was insane. Because again, WoW started before YouTube, before most social media, before there's really any sort of communication mechanism around that. But at the time it came out, I scoffed. Why would you play a game where the more you play, the stronger you get? There's no skill to it. I play a real skill game, right? This is deeply baked in my insecurities as a kid, right? Where I had to be really good at StarCraft. It was the thing. It wasn't that I played StarCraft. It's that I am a StarCraft player. And I felt almost threatened at the idea that there would be this lower skill game out there. I needed to be the high skill gamer. And that is not the attitude that I carried for the subsequent 20 years. But I was so interested in the competition and started to become more of a reasonable, mature person and just go, oh, yeah, you're allowed to play games and have fun. And also, there's plenty of PvP content. There's plenty of difficulty from challenges that don't involve PvP, even something like speed running or, race to world first. Like, in this period of time, I just happened to be so interested in StarCraft and happened to be so interested in competition that at some point, when I became a more mature adult, I felt like I'd kind of missed the boat. Like in 2014, the game's been out for 10 years, and it really is, from the outside looking in, it's like a content-driven game. They just keep adding more stuff to it. When am I ever really going to get the chance to play it? And basically, at the encouragement of the Day9 TV editor, Ed, who's amazing, just suggested I start playing recently. And that is my journey around WoW.
Awesome.
That is a fascinating journey. So, well, let me just finish your question real quick. When you were asking about what is M+. M+ is like basically ladder in StarCraft, and whatever these guys do is like custom games. That's like the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
Okay, but back to your point. So it's really fascinating that you say StarCraft was the hardcore game, because nowadays a lot of people are looking at retail WoW and they're playing the game as if it was that. There are a lot of high-end players who are like, oh, like I do the hard content, I deserve the rewards, and like everyone else, like these guys, they're just doing the casual content, like they're the casual players. There's like a really big distinction between the casuals and the hardcore. So it's actually fascinating to hear your journey through all of that.
Well, he got into StarCraft as this is the game you want to get super good at. I find that fascinating as someone who's in the game for the reason of being super good at it. But I think the only reason anyone ever got into WoW, all of us, the people who ended up playing super hardcore, no one ever got into WoW, even though retail is, you could argue, like pretty focused on like being good. He mentioned Mythic Plus. One thing he forgot to mention is it's like dungeon gameplay. Like it's it's like doing an MMORPG dungeon, but then they just keep getting harder. It's infinitely scaling. That's the idea of the mode, and you go as high as you can.
Infinite scaling. That's awesome.
Yeah, and people can like want to do that competitively, or you can want to clear the race as fast as possible. But the reason anyone ever got into WoW is they were probably obsessed with like RPG character progression. And just the idea of like building and progressing your character over time, filling up all those bars, whether they're reputation or skill points and weapons. Like if you liked that, WoW was so much better at that than every other game, like 10 years ahead of its time, that like
it still is. There's nothing that touches it as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe Path of Exile taps into some of the depth of progression.
And there's a big crossover there. There's a huge crossover between PoE players and WoW players, maybe for that reason. And that is what and then I think it just comes from playing the game enough, like people who are super good at this game, the people that are in my guild, the people who are like really really high level in WoW, those people just were absolutely obsessed with this game for such a long period of time, and it did not come from a place of being competitive. And then you just did it enough and got good enough at it to where it just became more and more fun to clear this the most difficult rating content in any game as fast as you can with your friends. If you're in Dorki's position as a Mythic Plus player, you want to get with your 4 best players and friends you can find, and then you can just actually infinitely test the scale of how far your group can go and how many problems you can solve along the way. And I think now more or less we're addicted to that. When you're a StarCraft player, you're addicted to getting as much resources out as possible. And I'll admit to you, as a very competitive person, I never started playing StarCraft because I acknowledge that I'm actually way too stupid to play that game. it's just too hard. But you become addicted to, you get into the game for a different reason, and then you become addicted to this raid content is so cool, and there's no other game that does this like this, and I just want to be as good at this as possible. And that's certainly where this all came from. But I do find it fascinating how you'd get into the game. And I personally found it fascinating recently watch you try to get into the game and encounter different problems, I think, than a lot of us ever faced when we got into it back in the day, rather than trying to get into it when it's all at once,
I'm curious, what sort of problems were you surprised to see?
From your end?
Yeah.
Just kind of not knowing exactly where you should go, or it just being so incredibly fast paced, especially compared to your experience in Classic, right?
I liked Classic substantially more than Retail.
Mm-hmm.
Retail felt like I was licking a battery.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, it's just welcome to the game. It's just and there's stuff happening, and go here and do this and hit these buttons, and they're it's introducing mechanic after mechanic after mechanic after mechanic with no context, no sense of anything. And this is something that I ranted about as I got through the Retail tutorial. I feel like if you're sitting someone down to start playing a game, if you give me a tool, I'm not going to be excited about it unless I have some problem that the tool solves, or unless I have some context that allows me to even understand or appreciate the tool. As a very simple example, if I said, hey, I just got this new game, none of you have played it, and I got a sword and it does 10 damage. We don't know if it's a good sword or if it's a bad sword. We don't even know if combat really matters that much in this game. And when I was sitting down to play Classic, there was not necessarily the most epic start. There's just a dude who's go over there to that mine and kill, 10 boars. I was like, all right. And I walk up. I start getting crapped on. I died a lot in those first 2 hours of playing. And then all of a sudden you get a new ability that does a slow, because I did a Frost Mage to first play. I care about the fact that I have a slow now because I was getting killed by dudes that were the same speed or were faster than me. That's really great. And when I was playing WoW Retail, it's here's this crafting mechanic and this system and that system. And I just didn't have any bearings, any context. So it just felt like I was having information thrown at me. Hold on, that's the largest dog I have ever seen in the background. Is that like a cow that got indoors? Who's this?
Yeah, it is similar to that. That's my dog Lily. She's very friendly. She's a Great Dane. Yeah, she's here. Come here, Lily. Come say hi.
Oh my God, Lily's awesome. Oh, everyone's coming in. Oh, we got the whole party, man.
We got little Reptar. We got Lily. We got big dog Lily here.
This is so much cooler than anything I was saying about tutorials.
No, it's not. I'm sorry that I.
Oh my God! Watch the cuddle. It's so sweet. But
yeah, she's a stream favorite. Baby girl, come here.
Oh, is she? There we go. Can I ask how big Lily is?
How tall or weight?
She's does she displace?
she's 105 pounds.
Damn. What a good baby. Anyways, we were talking about something. I don't remember where we were going or where I was going, but yeah, no, I definitely, when I played WoW Retail, there was such little context in that opening tutorial until I left the tutorial island and was back playing the game again. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, this all makes sense. And I feel like it is being paced at a more reasonable speed for me to understand what's happening.
So it was almost like tutorial island was missing the point almost. And because when I think of Classic and Retail, if you just start playing Classic, I think it's hard to not get the game, because kind of going from 1 to 60 is the game. That you've started the game immediately. I feel like in a lot of people's eyes in retail, especially if you haven't been in it for a while, because it can just be so much information. Like we mentioned Path of Exile, like kind of akin to Path of Exile. If you're someone who tries to play Path of Exile now, there's kind of a lot going on. I kind of feel
Yeah.
I kind of feel like retail, even though they've had multiple expansions where the whole point of it was to they brought in borrowed power. You get these things and then you remove them because you don't want to do the Path of Exile thing where you play a game and there's 10 expansions of information there. They tried to remove a lot of it. But I feel like a lot of what retail is, even for the most casual player, can be max level. The current quest line being involved with it, people really like that this expansion. It could be mount collecting, but for a lot of people, it's the end game loop of doing dungeons and raids, and that doesn't happen right away. And Classic has never been about that. It's about the journey to the top and maybe not being at the top. So I think if you're someone who doesn't make it to end game, I could see a lot of people coming away with, and also not to say that I think that's not something that's really refined in Blizzard is the process of getting you to the end game and maybe knowing what you're doing. And that sounds really hard to do, but I don't know if they do that well.
Yeah.
There's a point that you made earlier that I could not agree more with. The idea that when most people sit down to play a game, they just want to have fun. And there's something really fun and awesome and cool about that game. And that's it, full stop. No one even has a sense of what end game content means, or, what a dungeon or a raid or what the 1 to 60 journey is. It's that basic, like, oh, I have a quest. I hit a button. I kill the thing. There was a cool animation and a fun sound effect. And now I've leveled up and I get to make a choice. Ooh, that feels fun. Ooh, I got another ability. It's like very, very, very basic progression joy. And I think it's so easy, not just from a development perspective, but from like a community perspective, to overly index on, now that we know everything, what do we actually think makes sense? Because I've seen the same thing happen in real-time strategy games where when I first started playing StarCraft, Zerg was cool because they were like bugs. Like their workers turn into buildings. That's cool. If you make a Zergling, 2 of them hatch out of the egg. And to make units, you select larvae and you have them turn into eggs to hatch the units you want. That's really sweet. I played with just my mouse and no keyboard for like 2 years. And I had a blast because there's cool stuff happening. And then these, a lot of modern real-time strategy games are like, and here is a super simplified way for you to manage hotkeys and screens and keep your APM up and mitigate the difficulty of macro. And I feel like most people, they don't even, if they're just a normal average gamer when they sit down and play, they don't even know what these words mean. There's no context at all for any of that sort of stuff. Sometimes I want to just like grab developers and vigorously shake them. Just make your game fun. Imagine no one knows anything about the game and they're only allowed to play for an hour. How do you make the first hour insanely fun? Not how do you educate them so that they're prepared for the next 100 hours. Just how do you make an insanely fun 1 hour? And it's like that was so refreshing when I played World of Warcraft. I mean, I'm going to talk about Classic a good amount, but I mean, even retail I thought was, it's pretty spectacular compared to like every other game on the market. It was pretty unbelievably satisfying and fun to just dither around with no real intention.
Yeah. I think that the other thing about WoW, like I feel like there's a lot of people who play WoW now who it's kind of been like the frog in the boiling water type thing where, you started playing 10 or 15 years ago and then all of the added stuff and the changes from Classic to retail worked because they were gradual over that time for those players, but they wouldn't actually necessarily get into retail if they started it fresh. And then there's the category of people that are, that feeling of like the first time you play Path of Exile where you're just completely overwhelmed. Like there's a subset of players who enjoy that feeling and they will they're fine anytime. Like that's, they'll get into any game like WoW or StarCraft or Path of Exile, any of those games, and it'll always work.
Yeah, and I think that there is something that I do want to put my hands on my hips and defend Blizzard a little bit about, which is I feel like there is a world of difference between, can we identify problems that could be improved? Sure, absolutely. Is it actually a bad product? Is it actually like a quality issue that's existing there? Because I've heard this argument, for instance, with like League of Legends, with like, oh, it has a terrible new player experience, has the worst new player experience ever. Does it? Isn't it like one of the top 3 most played games in the world at all times and has for 10 years been in that position? Isn't it that it doesn't have this as a problem in the slightest, and it is so good at bringing in players that, again, it's one of the most played games in the history of humanity? Well, it could get improved, the new player experience, don't get me wrong. Is there friction? Yes, of course, don't get me wrong. But like when I was playing WoW, man, because I sort of pick up various little bits of social media, complaints about this thing and this problem with this dungeon, this expansion is the worst expansion of all time. And I gotta say, as someone with just not a lot of opinion going in, I was like, this is sick. this is fucking unbelievable to play. And I don't know what you guys sort of feel about this, whether it's like actually, once you play it for 3 years, there's so much content to get through over 3 years that, yes, you have a great 3 years. But then when you're really trying to push the late game, there's these kind of fringe problems. Like, I don't know what your perspective is compared to my newbie one.
Day9, so I actually watched your stream of when you were going through War Within, the new expansion, for the first time.
Yeah.
And that was fascinating. Like, for someone who's played WoW for a long time, I'm sure a lot of people have probably said this. Just like watching you stumble upon your first dungeon, which was Varukari. It's not normal for a player to just stumble into a dungeon and start soloing it. Like, that is not normal. Like, WoW players.
I did that when I first started playing.
Did you really? Yeah, because
like
WoW players know that, like, if you first enter a dungeon, like, this is meant to be challenged as a group, and you're supposed to collect 4 other players and, like, overcome the dungeon. But you just like strolled in there and started like soloing it, which was kind of like outlandish. And there was one really interesting part. Yeah, well, you died, but you continue to kill the first boss. So I was watching to the part where you unlocked your first hero talent. And you were playing your Death Knight, you had to choose between Deathbringer and Rider of the Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And so you couldn't decide. You flipped a coin, and you decided on it. Decided for you to pick Rider of the Apocalypse. And you're just like reading through the talents. You're like, I should pick this or that. And there's like a Blizzard prompt that shows up saying, like, don't worry, you'll unlock all these talents by level 80 or something like that.
Yeah.
And your reaction was really interesting. You said, "Boo, Blizzard! Like, let me commit to something, or let me make a choice." And this was like so fascinating because literally 2 expansions ago, Shadowlands, which was a notoriously badly received expansion, Blizzard tried to give players meaningful choice. They had a system called Covenants and Conduits. And instead of just being a warrior, for example, you had to become a like Kyrian warrior, or you had to be a Denfir Death Knight. And that was like the idea and vision that Blizzard had. They wanted players to commit to something, but the players absolutely hated it. The players didn't like the idea of like, I'm tied down to this, like, but like, what if I want to play the better one for raid, or like, like I wanted to switch and play whatever was meta at the time. And so I feel like that's where a lot of the distinction comes from. The players who nowadays just are more meta driven and more focused on having flexible choices, whereas like I fully understand it too in like older MMORPGs where you had to commit your character to something. Like in older MMOs, I would want to be an assassin that specialized in dexterity, and my skills layout was like poison bomb and savage blows, and that was supposed to be like my thing. But we don't really have that nowadays in retail because a lot of players are just kind of against that. So I'm kind of curious to hear like what you have to say about like the RPG elements and the whole meaningful choice that Blizzard tried to cook.
Yeah, I mean, like when I think about something like Diablo 2 versus Diablo 3, I also kind of had this feeling where something that I really like is the feeling of progression along some path that I chose, that I sculpted it out. It's my own little path. And I know Path of Exile, for instance, people have all their build planners and all these, meta videos. I kind of just fuck around and make the judgment call when I have the skill point every season when I'm playing. And it's fun for me personally. I enjoy the experience of playing for some long amount of time and going, aha, I see I went down this lightning build but I'm starting to think that maybe I could go do this other poison build. And the thing that feels fun to me is it feels like if I spent 30 hours doing this, I get 30 new hours of gameplay with this other path. So it feels like a richer, deeper experience to me. It's the same reason why, again, in StarCraft, you have people that, like, I was a Zerg player. I just mained Zerg. I committed to that. And if I wanted to go learn Protoss, and there'd be times when I'd say, I'm just going to ladder as Protoss for a little bit, it kind of felt like I was playing an entirely new game again. I was starting over and going through and having that commitment experience. And that's just something that personally I really like. I like committing to things. I like the problem that has come up in other RPGs that I've played where I say, okay, I've committed down, let's say a Frost Mage, committed to this Frost Mage build. Everyone here is frost resistant. How do I solve this problem? That's kind of weird and interesting. Maybe I need to get more items or more consumables, or I need to go to the town and bring on some NPC to help me get through this situation. Oh, I'm in a new area where everyone is vulnerable to frost magic. Oh my God, I get to feel overpowered. This was a really cool, fun experience. Actually, probably Elden Ring is the best example that I can come up with of a recent game where it really feels like...
I was going to bring that up to you.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't immediately mention Elden Ring as the best example of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's so fun to commit and like learn your weapon and learn your tools that you used. I really crave that feeling. However, I think that there is, if I'm using Elden Ring as a great example, even though I've committed to like maxing endurance and being the tankiest, heaviest poise haver I've ever had in any game, even in situations where this build is bad, the game gives so many tools and options to get you out of this situation. Like, again, consumables, bringing on NPCs, using spirit ashes, things like this. I don't know if WoW has these kinds of things in the same way, where I have heard people describe it in a very binary way. Hey, in this dungeon, if you have this build, you get to play the dungeon. If you don't have this build, you do not get to play the dungeon. And therefore, if you spend 60 hours carefully developing a particular character, you just don't get to play this dungeon. And I appreciate the sentiment of, well, fuck, I don't want to feel like I'm committing to something and locking myself out of fun stuff. Like, that kind of makes sense to me. And I don't know if WoW does have the flexibility like I'm describing with Elden Ring. This is just something I have no idea about.
Well, so that whole thing, I think, just has a concept, I guess, I want to bring up, which, you know, I think those choices could matter more, but I think gaming has kind of changed a lot. Like he mentioned Shadowlands. Shadowlands came out in 2020, and it was the bane of everyone's existence that you had to pick these things and actually commit to it. And it was like there was like this 2-week lockout for you to swap to the other one, which was like very significant with how you really play the game. And then I couldn't stop thinking about how if they released this in like the Burning Crusade or something like that, I think it would be one of the most popular experiences that WoW had offered, and people would talk about how cool it was back then, because playing games in Burning Crusade is a different time. And I was going to ask you, across multiple different games, how you think the like evolution of meta-based gameplay, or the maybe tier lists, or just things that people care about now, especially like games, do older games suffer from this, like League and WoW, like people just, there's a certain point where you grow out of a game where the people that remain are ones that have played it forever, and it kind of just becomes this like meta-driven tier list nonsense, and that is how your decisions are made rather than what you have the most fun playing.
Yeah, before that, I was going to say, what really makes retail different nowadays is how min-maxed the game is and how closely balanced. Like right now we're talking 5% difference is massive in retail. In other games, you have things that can swing from like, 200% to 300%, like even like Elden Ring, like you can have like builds that straight up one-shot bosses. So I think that's like the big distinction. But yeah, like going back to what you said, Max. Sorry, there's probably a lot of background noise. I'll let you guys talk.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, like it is crazy when you play Elden Ring how much it's like, like playing a weaker build and then fighting the boss for longer and like having to dodge more and having to express that skill is like fine, right? Like if you think about Elden Ring, it's like, oh, I'm gonna play a worse dagger build, and I'm gonna dance around in melee, and like this is gonna be a lot of fun for me, right? But if you go into WoW and it's like, yeah, I'm gonna play a worse spec, and like I'm gonna do the hard content, which is all group content. Like you're griefing, right? You're griefing other people, and that's like a very different kind of experience between the two. Because I love playing bad stuff at Elden Ring. Like I love playing weird bad builds in other games, but in WoW you kind of can't really do that in any of the actually hard content because it's a team game.
Yeah, I mean, I have almost too many opinions on this topic, so let's start at the top.
Unlikely. We got a lot of time.
So first, I think that there's this weirdness that comes with communities and volumes versus percentages of people who have problems. And let me just give an example. Let's say I write a book that 1,000 people read. Half the people like it, half the people don't. I have 500 haters of the book. Let's say I write a book that 1 million people read, and only 1% hate that book. Okay, so I'm going to try to do math again. So that's 10,000 people. There are way more people who hate the successful book than this 1,000 reader book. And so from like, if you go on Twitter or social media, which increasingly I feel like are outlier opinions, because all the people that I know that communicate in a mild, thoughtful way just stopped using things like Twitter, started going to more like Discords where they can have, more tempered discussions with a smaller pool of people. But I think that when you have these large aggregate social media sites, if there are 10,000 people of the million that bought a game who hate it, they're going to have a forum where they can all gather together and make big upvoted threads. And, one thing that I constantly heard when I was playing World of Warcraft is I was like, oh man, this is so awesome. This area is so cool. Oh, I got this ability. Oh, neat. And people going, that's the worst ability ever. That's a terrible zone. These things are horrible. And I went, I'm having a great time. This is fantastic. And like, when you get later on, you're gonna blah blah blah. And I was like, no, I don't care. I'm having a good time. I'm really enjoying myself. And so like that is something that I always try to keep in mind whenever I think about anything related to, hey, are people changing? Is there like a sentiment shift that has occurred? Because if you say something like, let's imagine we could get the following data. In 2006, World of Warcraft has been out for a bit, to where there are people that are more hardcore than others, but it's still kind of a new game in its overall lifespan. Maybe there, of the, say, few million people that are playing at that point in time, most of them are drawn to that more hardcore experience, that once they got to the end of the hardcore experience and they kind of felt like, okay, I've played my 5,000 hours, I think I'm good with the game. Maybe they're just not actually playing anymore. And maybe that's what represents the shift, is that there's this hardcore audience that was there, and now it's actually a meaningful audience change. What if it's a volume thing? What if the first million or so people who started playing WoW, those are the hardcore people, and now there's 2 million hardcore of the total subscriber base. So that overall has grown, but now maybe that's only a quarter of the total player population. And so I just don't really know information about what does the constituent player base look like? What does that data snapshot actually convey? Because so often I've seen things where just the overall size of a group grows a little bit, but there's a different group that has grown massively. So the hardcore population in this example would have grown, but it's just that overall there's more casual, so they start making more content for them. Again, I don't know any of the specifics about WoW, but that's just, again, a sort of top of mind thing that I always think about in these discussions.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any insight into this?
Because whenever WoW, like we obviously operate in kind of a bubble of, high-end WoW players, right? Like our stream viewers, our chatters and stuff. And that's kind of natural for any game, right? Like the people who are on Twitch for a game, right, are usually people that are pretty invested in it, right? So like I imagine that with WoW, just like with any other game, there's millions and millions of people who, like, the people who don't come into your chat and tell you an ability's bad are also having fun with whatever ability when, you know, they're playing their game by themselves or with their friends or whatever, right? And not posting on forums about the game. So I think there's definitely like that always is going to amplify the voices of the people who are really invested, who are playing for more hours, who are playing in a more serious way. Yeah.
I think something he mentioned too that was fascinating is I think his I guess we'll single it out. He mentioned that like he feels like a lot of people with reasonable opinions have moved off of Twitter.
Yeah.
And I feel like WoW's discourse almost exclusively goes down on Twitter, and Twitter has become increasingly in the gaming space like more negative, and like those niche opinions spread like wildfire of the hating variety. And I think that certainly colors the overall atmosphere around the game for people who are involved in it.
Yeah, and it's because I mean I just don't have that much free time, and when I do have free time, I tend to just, you know, go on a walk and listen to music or something, or play Deadlock lately. And so I'm just not on Twitter. Like I've never been to the WoW subreddit and browsed around there. So I mean, for me, I'm just in this blissful, oh, look at this cool game. Oh, there's a huge tree over there. Let's go to there. It's just like so almost absent-minded, thoughtless. I'm playing the game and having fun. And so I think that like I still haven't answered your question about, hey, what do you think about games being very meta-focused now versus the way it was in 2004, pre all this content stuff? But again, I do want to note that, yeah, I've had a almost exclusively positive vibes feeling about World of Warcraft through all the hours that I've streamed of it. And I think that coming finally to your question about like meta stuff, I think it is really important that any modern developer acknowledges that the internet exists. People are going to watch stuff on TikTok and YouTube. They're going to talk to each other on Discord. They're going to share tons of information. Oh, you have a new card game? It's going to be net decked to shit in 48 hours. That is the reality of the world that we live in. And you have to design with that in mind. And I think Elden Ring is a good example of this, where it just throws so much content at you. There's no 3D map to understand the space. All these dungeons are twisted and gnarled and require you to actually think through it. There's no trick to beating most of the enemies. You actually have to get better at the combat system. And it forces you to actually engage in a particular way that says, go online and look up as much as you want. You're still going to have to hit your buttons at the right time. You're still going to have to keep track of where you are, period. And I think that with a lot of the way that I've experienced WoW, where you have so fucking many buttons to press in this game, holy shit, how refreshing to have a button-full game. I mean, even if you go online and just try to look up stuff, there's seemingly infinite side content to do, different rotations to try to get used to, things you can play around with, even if you've locked into a build. And so, you know, I kind of appreciate that if there is gameplay that's there, you know what? We acknowledge that you're going to just net deck the best build, as it were. So we need to give you the flexibility to switch for various dungeons, because that's not where we're trying to make the gameplay live.
Well, okay. So I think a lot of that is super fascinating, and I know you have some experience in game design yourself, right?
Yeah, I've done dev for 15 years.
Awesome. Okay. So I want to kind of ask you about a game's balance when it comes to stuff like that, because you're saying, oh, this game is so button full. There's so many things I can do, while some people, when getting into the game, have actually had the opposite interaction. In fact, I actually went through this with someone I was trying to help through the game, and I had them play Frost Mage as well. And the amount of buttons actually was kind of a deterrent. I remember they were at max level, and I was trying to help them through a dungeon, and I asked them, I wanted them to have their immunity back up again. These words maybe won't mean anything to you, but I wanted them to cold snap to do their ice block again. I was like, I want you to cold snap.
I know both of those. I know
That's
both
awesome.
of those, not just because they are also cards in Hearthstone.
Oh, good point. And we can get into that too. But I remember asking her to do that, and then asking her to flurry as well. And then I watched her go through her spell book and try to find those things. And then I realized at that moment, oh shit, every single one of these buttons looks like they could be cold snap or ice block or flurry, because all of the cold spells and icons look something like that. And that could also, the amount of buttons that encourages you and looks forward to the amount that you could like intake in this game can also be something that overwhelms players. And I wanted to ask your opinion as a game designer and also as a longtime player of these games. What do you think of the challenge that like games like Blizzard have, games like League have, maybe especially really 2015, 20-year-old games, that they have of serving the audience that has played for such a long time and expects advances in what the game already is versus the new player experience that you recently went through? And a lot of times those are not mutually exclusive. Like, you kind of have to make everybody happy, or you have to focus on one. And how you would approach that problem, and how you think that problem affects Blizzard's design.
Yeah, so first, coming from some of the like, the player's overwhelmed. There's, we have to be very careful to make sure the player's not overwhelmed. How do we bring this down? When taken to an extreme, of course, if a game is too overwhelming, someone will simply stop playing. And, a lot of the challenge of design and trying to make something fun is not, will players eventually learn this? Can we give tutorialization so the player can understand this? The risk is they just quit playing. That's the actual risk and the problem that you're trying to solve. And I think, therefore, it's very easy as, from a development standpoint to go, oh my gosh, we saw that this percentage of players stopped playing at this moment. What was overwhelming there? Let's get that out of the way. Here's the problem with that kind of train of logic. A game is a bunch of problems. That's what it is by definition. In golf, your problem is you're trying to put the ball in the hole. The easiest way to do that is to pick it up and to put it in the hole. But that's not fun. We don't consider that fun. Instead, you have to stand hundreds of yards away with like metal and hit it, and there's curvy terrain and wind and shit. Like, that is what makes the game fun, is that problem that you are trying to solve. And so you need to keep problems in a game. You need to be very deliberate about what problems you exaggerate, what you accentuate, because, and I mean this as literally as I can, a game is a bunch of problems. And I think that there have been many games that I have seen and played recently. New World, when I played it, because I was like, I've never really played an MMO. I'm going to start playing New World. If I recall, someone will correct me, when I played, you were allowed to have like 3 buttons. Is that right? Like, you had like a shift and a left click and a right click and like an E or something. And I looked at that, weapon. And let me tell you, I was not overwhelmed. That didn't happen to me in the slightest. I understood exactly what my 3 buttons did when I clicked them. And I immediately was totally bored out of my mind, right? I understood the problem in 5 minutes, but then I was bored after 5 hours, and then I quit playing. And I think it's incredibly easy to over-index on this kind of eliminate all the overwhelm, negative, bad feeling possible. But if a game is a bunch of problems, you have to preserve some of that terrible, oh my God, this is way too overwhelming. If that's the only thing that there is, I think that you will have players quit the game. But I'm curious about your friend who played at max level, was trying to navigate through all these abilities and trying to just like, I don't know, set up the hotbars. I know is like its own little mini sub problem of what to do. Mm-hmm. But did they like stop playing after that?
They played for a little bit in the season, and they did enjoy the game, and they found it fun to do that content. They also they spent a lot of time making their user interface better, which is also another really interesting thing about WoW, that it's something you can like completely customize versus a lot of games' decisions to like give you something that they think is best out of the box, and there's not really any options for that. So I know that helped a lot. But yeah, they kept going.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. I've a lot of passion about getting more buttons on screens. If you even think about a lot of the games that have been recent super mega successes, or even that maintain their success with new audiences, like take Fortnite. Fortnite, you have to like aiming and shooting with difficult or with different weapons when you can be hit from all sides is already challenging. And you have to like turn into a house if someone's shooting at you. You have to like do this crazy construction and collecting of resources. So you're not just managing the ammo, you're managing all the various things. or the construction resources, and trying to like dynamically figure out how to deal with the palace they're building versus the palace you're building, and so on. It has a lot of complexity. Hell, even Minecraft. Like, if you open up Minecraft, which I did about 2 years ago, my wife and I just said, we haven't played Minecraft in a million years, downloaded it, opened up the game. We were playing, I think it was on some console, so we're at our TV. And you just open the game and you're just there, and there's like no information. It's like this crazy moment where we're like, what do we fucking do? And we had to like have a wiki open with all the recipes, and there's like suddenly, I mean, you punch things for like 5-10 minutes, and your entire inventory is full of stuff that has all these different properties and all these different things to manage. And yet, Fortnite exploded, and especially with young gamers. Same with Minecraft, still hugely played by a younger audience. And so I think that in my eyes, as a general note, not speaking about World of Warcraft specifically, but players like complexity and richness. All the most played popular games in the world are not easy to learn, difficult to master. They're actually pretty hard to learn, but they're just so damn fun. And there's just so much possibility and so much awesomeness and so much cool parts of the experience that over time you slowly learn all these various complexities and all these various components. And I know I've spent a bunch of time talking about other games, and I want to come to WoW in a moment, but like I'd be curious your reaction to some of that before we even go into WoW.
Yeah, I think it's really cool as well, because one of the things about like Fortnite, Minecraft, is you can go into these games and there will be like you can have like your 7-year-old cousin who plays Minecraft and who just all they do is like punch trees and then take the wood blocks and then make houses out of them, right? And like,
yeah,
they don't engage at all with all that other stuff also, right? Like they're literally just playing that part of the game, right?
That's
Sometimes
me and WoW. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I have another spell that makes them cold. This is sick. Like,
yeah. And then there's so you have like all that depth available, but it's not all it like the process of just playing the very surface level of, I think especially Fortnite and Minecraft is like, that's really fun inherently. And I think WoW has some of that, but WoW does have some problems where like, if you're trying to do that for an extended period of time, like you're going to run into people who call you mean names for the fact that you're doing that in their dungeon or whatever, which is an interesting social challenge that I know League has that problem as well, right? Like League has that problem too, where if you're literally going in and you're like, I'm going to play Nocturne, I'm going to go into the middle lane, and then you start like trying to, and you're just there are 9 other people in that lobby, and 7 of them are calling you a slur. It's unavoidable.
Yeah, and Minecraft doesn't have that problem. You're like, can I have some diamond? And someone's like, here you are.
Yeah.
Just walk away. Don't even ask for anything.
Yeah, with World of Warcraft, there's like such a big distinction between, like I was talking about this earlier, the whole elitist community and the more casual player base. In fact, like we've had this whole discussion in our earlier podcast where we've discussed this new feature that Blizzard added, which was called Delves, and it was meant to be for.
Did you do a delve? Even know. Have you done a delve, by the way?
I delved, baby.
Okay.
I delved. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
did you enjoy delving?
Yeah, actually, yeah. What was your experience with delves?
Okay.
Sort of that.
My opinion on delves is really similar to my opinion on almost everything that I've done with WoW, which is, ooh, this is cool. I could do this too. And then I move on to something else. Oh, this is cool. I could do this too. I mean, really, I'm kind of like a pinball, just ricocheting through content when I'm playing. And at no point have I picked any particular system and said, how do I go deep on this? Because delves, it was like, you can go up to like however many levels of delves. And I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. And then I like flew around as a dragon for like an hour and didn't land. That was awesome. I had a great time. So
I do that all the time. I do that. That's my whole stream, by the way. Like whenever I start like just basically ADHD rambling for hours on my stream, I will just get on a dragon and start flying and not land the whole time I'm doing that. It is sweet. Yeah. Dorki, did you Dorki, you were going to kind of lead that into something, I think, about delves, right?
Yeah.
So like delves, like, you know, we're just wondering what Blizzard's intention was with delves and like who they're really creating this content for, because it's what a lot of us would call easier content. It's for, you know, like what we called the mole people. That's the term we gave them, which is basically like People who only want to do easy content for rewards, like they don't care about the fun or the challenge or
Oh yeah.
like the depth of the gameplay. They just like want to reap all the rewards because in World of Warcraft there are a lot of players who are reward driven and they will do anything it takes to get certain rewards, even if they absolutely hate it. And the best example of this was Blizzard released some battle royale mode called Plunderstorm, and obviously, while being a much older player base, there were a lot of people who were not happy with the idea of battle royales. In their mind, they're thinking like, "Oh, that's what my stupid nephew plays." Like
every game needs
Fortnite.
a battle royale. Yeah.
Yeah, every game nowadays is a battle royale. So you've got these like angry boomers who are like not happy with the idea of battle royales, but the problem was there was like some super cool transmogs, which are like stuff you put on your character that you can get from Plunderstorm. So these guys feel forced, quote unquote, forced to play Plunderstorm. Like it's literally just a cosmetic reward that you can get from it, but people were so compelled to play it only for the reward and nothing else.
And it's reminding me some of what's happened with Magic the Gathering over the last few years, where Magic the Gathering used to be a game where there was basically 4 releases per year, 1 a quarter, and so it was really fun to kind of like play for 2.5 months with this set. And then there'd be this, few week period where you'd be getting excited for the next set. They'd be releasing cards that were going to be coming out. And then the new set would drop and you'd get this fresh experience and rinse repeat. And they have started to release so many intermediary products that for someone like me, and I would consider Magic probably my second favorite game of all time after StarCraft. I still think it's a 10 out of 10. Love the game, think the designers are brilliant. I'm just kind of overwhelmed with how many cards I have to keep track of. The idea of, if I wanted to play this format, if I wanted to play Modern, I suddenly now have this one promotional set that I then have to go seek out and buy just to get a chance to get this one particular card that I would need for this Modern deck. And, I just am kind of at a point where I'm like, all right, I guess I can go to a secondary market and just buy directly from like, I don't know, Card Kingdom or something like that. Maybe that's the solution and kind of avoid the product release cycle. But then I'm at a point now where I've kind of lost track of what some of these card releases are because I was just like so overwhelmed by it. And it reminds me a little bit of what you were saying with these rewards, where there are some people that were saying, well, I'm a collector. I like to collect all the Magic cards. And now all of a sudden, I've tripled the amount of money that I have to spend, or frankly, just the sheer difficulty of trying to obtain what I want to maintain my collection. I was happy being a constant collector of 4 sets a year, but now that it's grown, I don't know if I want to do any collecting at all. And I think that that's a very real problem and a very real issue where I don't really know what the solution is outside of, this reminds me a lot of what's happened with Magic. My point is, man, that sucks. I'm so sorry, man. That fucking sucks.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the whole, people play for different reasons. Because, like, when it comes to RTS, I know you're a big RTS guy. My favorite game of all time was Warcraft 3, by the way. Warcraft 3 was amazing.
Let's go.
I felt this way with the campaign versus ladder. Because, like, I love campaign in RTS. I've played, like, almost all of the major Blizzard RTS campaigns. But when it comes to ladder, I'm like, a little bit more apprehensive about. And I generally like just finish campaign, then I'm just like off playing custom games. So
just like
it's good to see some. Yeah, it's good to see that, like, you're experiencing that side of WoW now.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that like this is part of why I talked about the whole data thing, when this was starting to get brought up, because like WoW very clearly is trying to make different sub modes for different kinds of players. So that way everyone can be happy. But if there's these kinds of people that just do raids who are complaining about Plunderstorm, and these types of Plunderstorm players who are complaining about raids, there's a large volume of complaints, but could it possibly be that they're both actually just enjoying their specific mode largely? Like, I'm curious.
I actually think that's most likely the case. I mean, it was actually kind of a fascinating experience. So Plunderstorm was like, something they released. So WoW has a very long time history of publicly testing every single bit of content that comes into the game. So nothing is really fresh and new. You kind of know a little bit, at least, ahead of time. Plunderstorm was the first time they ever kept something completely secret. And they completely tested it internally. All they did was they have these roadmaps they release now. They kind of give you an idea of what you can expect over the next year.
Yeah.
And they had a little pirate flag. And no one knew what that meant. And for a lot of people, maybe that meant it was a quest chain or something like that. And I think it really upset a lot of people because maybe someone in this game, well, I mean, first of all, I thought it was one of the most incredibly well-made thing. I cannot believe how good it was with them not having tested it publicly ahead of time. It was incredibly well made. If you were open to the idea of something like a battle royale in general, or as we found out in a lot of cases of WoW players, being open to really any kind of idea of PvP whatsoever. A lot of people, I think, play WoW to completely avoid that. Even though there are people who play WoW literally to do that, right? And there's another conversation to be had about how hard is Blizzard's job of trying to make 6 to 10 different... There's millions of people who play this game for a bunch of different reasons and don't even interact with the other ones, you know, and like how difficult that is. But they released Plunderstorm, and so many people were like, this is not exactly what I wanted from this patch. And maybe it's possible that Blizzard could make something incredibly good, but if it's ever geared towards one niche, but naturally, you mentioned earlier the really successful book. You could make something really successful for that amount of people, but 60% of the people in the game play the game for a different reason, right? So it's hard really to please a large amount of people. So what you saw people do when Plunderstorm came out to get those cosmetics was it was based on the amount of plunder you received, I believe, right? That increased your rep. Yep. Plunder was a resource you could get in the game from killing players later on, but for the first like 2 to 3 minutes of the game, you kind of just ran around and gathered it. So what you saw was a large majority of the people actively hated this game mode, wanted nothing to do with it, but they felt like they needed the rewards from the end of it. They had, of course, so WoW is releasing a transmog said, I have to get this. The only way to get this was to play the game and earn plunder. So they got plunder for the first 3 minutes, and then they ran into the gas and died. And that was their thing. Or it was the thunder in that game. And that's the way they did it, and they actively hated every minute they did it. But it was like something they felt like they had to do as a chore for like a week, which was like the super long way to do it. If you just played through the whole game, you would have been done much earlier than that. But they just hated the idea of PvP that much that they had to just go get the little plunder they could. And as soon as another player ran at them, they ran into the thunder and died. And I thought that was fascinating. That was fascinating.
That's the most beautiful story I've heard today. I just want the loot. They just like throw themselves. So like Mark Rosewater, who's the lead designer of Magic the Gathering, has talked a lot about when you're designing a set of cards, the worst rating you can get on a card is like a 6 or 7 out of 10. That's the worst thing. What you want is polarization, where you want some people who think it's a 10 out of 10 and some people who think it has a low rating. Like, obviously, the ideal best is everyone says it's a 10 out of 10. But often you'll have things that are, you know, let's imagine a really splashy, dramatic, ridiculous 9-mana dinosaur. I love that card. I haven't seen it yet, but it's probably my favorite thing in the universe. I would give this like a 9 or a 10. If you're a really hardcore competitive player, you might go, I don't see a way to bring out a 9-mana card. That's way too expensive. I hate this thing. I wish they would print things that are better in the current format that I play. Let me give it a low rating. It's okay to get a polarized rating, because what you're really looking for is to get the total amount of people who have some kind of 10 out of 10 experience with your game. And in a certain sense, if people therefore are expressing strong dislike, in a way that's actually okay, as long as there's people that really like it. The danger zone is when everyone goes, yeah, we think it's fine. We think it's totally reasonable.
It reminds me of like the New World, right? Like the New World gameplay, right? It's bland and it's not offensive, right? And it's kind of hard to hate it, right? But then you don't feel any need to keep playing it. Whereas WoW has like 30 different things you could do and like, and you only have to like one of them to like WoW, right?
You get to want to play it for like hundreds of hours a year. So I have this rant that I've gone on my stream way too many times, but I'm on the podcast. Get ready, gentlemen. So there's this food and beverage researcher named Adam Karmer, and I was reading some of his stuff, and I think I'm going to get the term wrong, but he had this concept of non-dissatisfaction. The idea of if something makes you feel nothing or good, that would rate really highly on non-dissatisfaction. Whereas if you didn't like it, that's how you get a low rating. And so if you showed someone, a movie and they were like, yeah, it's totally fine. Awesome. Highest rating on non-dissatisfaction that we can give it. And that there are certain scents and flavors that score very highly in this. Like if you have a lemon scent on a cleaning product, almost no one complains about that. A vanilla base in a dessert, or if you're making some sort of fruit juice beverage, having apple juice as a base. These are things that generally people are neutral to positive on. And there was a piece about, so, hey, if you are like some enormous chain, like let's imagine we're Starbucks and we're trying to make a new coffee beverage that we want to distribute across the entire globe. What's the process of iterating on that beverage? What are we trying to do? Well, we might favor maximizing non-dissatisfaction. We might continue to work on this to make sure that if anyone orders it, there's almost no chance they hate it. And that is a completely different goal than maybe some bespoke coffee roaster who's trying to continually brew the earthiest, most like sour, weird tasting coffee that for some people, it's their favorite thing ever, but for other people, they hate it. And to be clear, these are not two opposite ends of a spectrum. They're two separate axes. You can have something that satisfies a lot of people and rates highly in non-dissatisfaction. And Christopher Nolan is often referenced as like a filmmaker that does this. It's a good mass market movie, and there's also a lot of people that are really into film that speak very highly of his works. That it's a lot of people's favorite movies are Christopher Nolan movies. And I feel like this idea of satisfaction versus non-dissatisfaction describes so many of the games that I like and that I don't like. And I'll take Elden Ring to start off with. Elden Ring and the Souls games have pissed me off more than any other game that I have played that are single player, and they're probably like my favorite single player games. And they're what they're doing is very unique, and it's trying to satisfy this sensation of like triumph so strongly. When I played New World, I felt like I was playing a game from a team that was focused on non-dissatisfaction. Or when I play the Ubisoft open world games, I feel like they're emphasizing non-dissatisfaction. How do we make sure you aren't lost, that you aren't confused, that you aren't at a point where you're unsure where the next quest line should go? And I don't want to state this as a criticism. Like, I think that a lot of the open world Assassin's Creed games, I have friends who buy them whenever they launch, always enjoy playing them. It's just like a different kind of perspective of development that I think is helpful to kind of frame. I like when games are focused on satisfying players. I like when they're trying to do something that some people might hate, that other people fucking love. And I have no interest, for me personally, no interest in this non-dissatisfaction maximizing games.
This is actually such a good point you've made, because Blizzard has actually gone through this with World of Warcraft multiple times. And so for like a little bit of context, what happened in, I want to say from like 6, maybe even like 8 years ago, all the way to like 4 years ago, Blizzard has been trying to make major cooks. Like they're trying to do things that are like big and different, like a new legendary system in Legion, or like artifact power, and just like all these different systems that you can grind and like make your character go crazy. But that obviously pissed a lot of people off. Like you had a lot of people who were very unhappy with it, but at the same time, you had a lot of people who had a ton of fun with it. People were just like playing the game nonstop. And so Blizzard saw that as mostly a negative. There were a really loud vocal minority that were just like, not happy with how it is. And so Blizzard kind of like took a stance back, and nowadays they're going through more of like a healing phase, is what we've been calling it, where they're a lot more complacent with how they approach design. Like they're just making safe choices, like choices that wouldn't really piss off people. But at the same time, there is some level of apathy when it comes to how people felt about the past expansion, the Dragonflight, that is. there are definitely a lot more people who are feeling a little bit, I want to say, bored with the game, but they don't hate the game.
Yeah.
And I never know like if that's like necessarily a good or bad direction for World of Warcraft or Blizzard.
I feel like in like a 20-year-old game, it's almost impossible to not cycle between those things based on feedback, right? Like I think what you saw with Dragonflight was a response to them absolutely going for 10 out of 10 in some people's minds in Legion and BFA. And I think they achieved that. Actually, I think everyone in this call, at least I know Dorki and I, our favorite times to ever play the game were when they shot their shot at the end of Legion and at the end of BFA. But it took a long time to get to those points in those expansions. And I know that there were people who felt like the part of the game that they liked, it didn't hit for them. And then I think some of that feedback led into more of the safe designing over the last expansion or two, where they've kind of just spent a lot of, instead of coming up with new, cool systems that take a couple years to make and then they'll go away, which were very successful at the end of those expansions, they're saying, hey, let's spend those time working on systems that are going to continue in our game as long as we're going to make it. The talent system that you interacted with when you started playing was one of those things. The hero talents are an extension of that, at least for World Soul Saga. They changed the way professions worked. Like professions are a completely, totally different, very involved thing now. They're working on the things that... Oh, did I lag out, Dratnos?
I'm lagging. Maybe it's on my end. I'm not sure.
Oh, well, you're the recorder, so that's highly unfortunate.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Oh God.
Okay, keep going. It seems good.
Well,
professions.
Yeah, well, I mean, I wasn't going to go too hard on professions. I actually think we've actually covered a lot when it comes to this. And wow, I was actually wondering if we wanted to like transition to some Twitch stuff, because we're all Twitch streamers, and you are the most OG one of those. And
the oldest one.
I have like two questions I want to ask you, and I know that they have some. I want to ask you from like streamer to streamer, have you ever had any... Well, actually, I find it almost impossible that someone wouldn't have this issue, but I'm interested in how you solved it or how you look at it now. The issue of turning your favorite passion and hobby into your job, and how you balance still loving and enjoying gaming outside of that with that balance. I've always found that balance to be fascinating. I think people in all different kinds of fields deal with this, but I think the one in gaming is super particular because we all got into this because it's something we obsessively loved and had so much fun doing. But it's always, maybe you game a little bit less outside of your stream hours because it's your job, right? Or maybe you don't really want to talk about gaming all day after you're done gaming because you just kind of do that all the time. Like, have you ever run into, in your long history doing this, have you run into that at all, and how have you dealt with it, if so?
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that like, I cannot stress enough how every streamer has dealt with this, because there's a lot of viewers that are like, it would be amazing to play games all day. And
they don't get it.
If you said to someone, hey, like, okay, let me imagine it's like high school. I'm on winter break where I got 2 weeks where I don't have to do anything. I don't have any homework. All I want to do is game. Except someone just invited me to go hang out at their house. And I would just go and not think about the fact that I was opting out of gaming. And when it's your profession, it's like, can't go over. Have to keep playing Hearthstone in the shittiest meta I've ever experienced. Like, and I'm going to have to do it for 6 hours today and 6 hours tomorrow. And if I don't, we can't pay rent. And,
this is so relevant.
Yeah, these are the kinds of things that I think are... It's almost like this invisible problem that until you're in it, you're like, oh my God, this is rough. I think in my early career, I didn't experience it as much because it was StarCraft. And I had already been obsessively playing this game for 15 years. And it just felt like I never had enough time to talk about all the things I wanted to talk about. But also in those early days, I was only doing like 2-hour streams, and they were educational lectures. They were not just me turn the stream on and playing games for like 8-10 hours, like a lot of new streamers the last 5 years have been doing. And I think that for me, there's a few things that have been like really good psychological underpinnings to keep my sanity. One, there's two parts to this. One is that I just don't play games or do things that I don't actually want to do. Mm-hmm. And immediately tying into that, I do not do financial planning about what my peak of monthly revenue is like. I do it based upon what the trough is going to look like, so I'm extremely conservative. So let me just give an example. And I'm just going to use numbers that make the math simple. Let's imagine that my best month ever was earning $100 a month. And let's say this would give me a wonderful, lavish lifestyle. Again, this is a sample number for simplicity's sake. I have seen streamers that are having killer viewership, new game just came out, and now they're finally earning $100 a month. And maybe they move into an apartment that's not outlandish, but as long as they're making like $80 a month at least, they're going to be okay. And then what happens when they drop to 60? They immediately feel obligated to start doubling their streaming hours. Because the thing is, behind the notion of streaming and gaming, this is an entertainment-based business. You do not make money per year. You make money this year or this month, and there's no guarantee that next month is even going to have any revenue. I have had insane swings for the entire 15 years that I've been streaming. And so, like, I make sure that I'm doing the games that I want to do. I look for things that have a good overlap with my interests and what my audience is to help make sure that the viewership is good. I really like abstract puzzle games. Those don't get good viewership, so I tend not to stream them, as an example. I also like card games and roguelikes. I stream lots of those because this is a good overlap with what my audience wants. But financially speaking, I just am very, very conservative with making sure that, yeah, I can actually have a bad year or two and I'm okay. So that, like, sort of financial plus I'm doing things that I like means that, like, later today I'm going to stream Factorio Space Age, even though I don't stream Factorio normally, because I'm excited for that game. Maybe it gets bad viewership for 2 weeks. That's okay. I'm doing a thing I like. So that would be the biggest advice I'd give to someone, is to try to structure your content with all these variances in mind and to err on the conservative end. But I think for me personally, maybe even a bigger reason why I have felt like I'm able to continue to enjoy and able to continue to engage as a streamer is that I've always kind of been doing two things at once. I mean, in a very simplified sense, I'm streaming or I'm doing some game dev stuff. Like, if I get up in the morning, because remember, I'm an adult, I get up early.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, get up in the morning. That's already not on my checklist.
Oh my God, it's 9 p.m. I'm so tired. I have to go to bed so I can get up early and do game stuff. So, like, if I get up and let's say I'm really excited to work on a game project, but there's this weird thing in Unity. I can't figure out how this widget works. And why what's this weird bug? If I spend 6 hours doing something there and I make no progress, I go, you know what, that's okay. I'll just go stream a game that I'm in the mood to stream and I'll be okay. So I can have a bad game dev morning and then stream and feel like at least I'm earning some money. And you know what? I enjoyed my time streaming. Or if I'm in the middle of a stream, I still distinctly remember when there was this Hearthstone meta that was I just didn't like it. I was every cool idea for a neat deck I wanted to do, I would just get clapped by the top 3, and that was it. And I'd be having a rough day, and psychologically I'd go, but that's okay, because tomorrow morning I get to go back and work on that game, and I'm feeling some momentum on that. And I think, like, distributing where I am getting some of my professional and personal joy from is really helpful. And frankly, even outside of those things, when there's like a good TV show or like a good game, you know, like, that's like a third thing. Or like, oh, well, work fucking sucks, but the next episode of Survivor is on, you know, like, trying to be very intentional and deliberate about having these different things to alternate between has saved my sanity countless times. And I mean, literally at least once a week, I have that feeling of, I really don't want to stream, but that's all right. I get to do some game stuff tomorrow.
Yeah, I think among the streamers that do have like a negative experience, it's overwhelmingly where you get into streaming one game or one mode of one game, and like that's the only place you can find viewers, right? And like you try and branch into another game, your viewership drops by 90%, and you're like, I can't make ends meet if it's like this. Now I'm back to like, I have to stream the game I don't want to play right now, and all of a sudden, instead of having a game, I have like a job that pays not very well and is also not very, like, now my hobby is also not fun anymore. It's like a disaster.
Super unstable. If your viewership drops even a little bit next month, you miss rent. Like, oh my God, like the stress is just, it's insane.
Yeah. You've also done some like casting, commentating, hosting stuff too, right? Like that's been a part of the cauldron concoction mix thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that like compared to say the game dev, the streaming? I don't know how much satisfaction and joy do you derive from that, or how is that like a little side project thing sometimes?
As you can tell, I do like talking, so that helps contribute to that outlet. It's weird. I in a lot of ways I don't really think of myself first and foremost as a like caster host person because I was super hardcore competitor in StarCraft for like more than a decade before I ever did my first stream. And then my stream was focused on StarCraft. I started my stream when I was in a grad program focused on game dev. And so I always had the intention to do that, but then Day9 TV grew and suddenly I was being invited to cast tournaments for like my favorite game franchise. And I did that a lot, the streaming where I was talking about again, the educational style StarCraft content and doing the hosting and the casting. But over time I've slowly sort of steered away from that. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think one, as a profession, I'm just going to bluntly say I think all casters and commentators should get paid way more money. I think that the casters and commentators that every esport event that I tune into, from fighting game commentators at Evo to watching CS:GO majors to watching Dota majors to continuing to watch my buddies that do StarCraft commentary. I mean, this is world-class talent doing extremely high-level, complex analysis in real time while maintaining hype and communicating this all so amazingly. They should be paid way better than they are. And some of this is an ecosystem-related thing. There's just, people talk about the esports winter, but even when esports was going great, still there was not the most money floating around in the esports space. And so, you want to talk about an unstable feeling career. I mean, at least my stream, if I have bad viewership, I still have the ability to go live. I was doing a lot of StarCraft commentary from 2010 to 2013, 14. I guess maybe 2010, 2015. There are tournaments that were like major employers that don't even exist anymore, like NASL or IPL or MLG. They're gone. They don't do any StarCraft stuff. They're out. And so I think that sort of stress of needing to do super high level focus for 12 to 16 hours, 5 days in a row, while you're at a hotel in another country, come home for a few days, go to the next one. I'm so impressed at anyone that does full-time commentary. That's like so insanely hard. I still like doing commentary. I still like hosting. And so from time to time, there'll be chances to do it. I mean, the most notable one is I host the PC gaming show every year at E3. May it rest in peace. I guess Summer Game Fest now. And I really enjoy that. And that's really great. And that's much more of just traditional hosting outside of the sort of esports space. But yeah, no, I'd say that I am over time less interested in specifically doing the esports commentary stuff. And frankly, more of just the general content. Casting, commentary, hosting, I think is more interesting to me right now. But making games still number one.
It's funny you bring this up because Dratnos actually just went through this whole process. So he got picked up by Liquid to cast for Race the World First. And
hell yeah.
How exactly did the conversation go, Max? How much?
Oh, this is so
will we get
funny.
paid?
Okay, yeah. So I was trying to get Dratnos. I think Dratnos is by far the best caster in the Race to World First. And he was casting for the other team. So I'm like, we want to get him on ours. And he approached me. He's like, hey, like I'd want to, like, could you connect me with this guy? I'm like, okay, sure. Like, what's your rate? And then he sent me the rate, and then I sent it to the director, and I don't know exactly the verbiage we got back, but it was something like, this is very reasonable. Nice. Thank you. This is great. What an awesome rate. And then I messaged him back. I'm like, buddy, you messed up. Come on. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's a bigger number.
And it's tough because, I mean, I know people that run esports productions. Like, I know Team Liquid. It's not like, the guy operating the video switcher like raced his private jet to the event that day. Like no one in esports is doing this because it's the easiest way to make money. But it's tough that even streaming, as large as it is, it's still a very new space. It's still very volatile. There are agencies that emerge and collapse all the time. I mean, when I started back in 2009, when I started, by the way, yesterday, as of the recording of this podcast right now, yesterday was my 15th anniversary of my first stream.
Yo,
15 years, baby.
Congrats.
Awesome.
There was a video platform called Blip TV. So I would do the live broadcast. Where do I put my VODs? Do I make a YouTube channel? Well, Blip just literally had way better rates on revenue, on their CPMs. They were like 3 or 4 times higher than YouTube at the time. So it's like, do I upload to Blip and make 4 times as much, or do I upload to YouTube? That at that time had hard bans on gaming content. And like, if you was discovered that you upload a bunch of WoW videos, they would just like delete your channel. So we were like, all right, let's upload on Blip. And then one day, Blip just shut down, and we lost all of our VODs, and all the revenue from that just disappeared. It would be the equivalent of if, like today, your YouTube channel just disappeared or Twitch just disappeared. And, we were okay. We just said, hey, everyone, we need you to go sub on YouTube now. But I mean, it's things like that this is like one example of the kind of thing that I have heard countless stories of over the last 15 years working in the space, where there's like so much instability. There's so much volatility that I think it's like psychologically critical to have like multiple tongs in the fire. To like, hey, like you guys, we're doing a podcast. You also stream, as I have gleaned. Do some commentary. These are the kinds of things that I think are necessary in the sort of, especially in the weird state of the global financial markets right now, with interest rates and various funding pullbacks and so on and so forth. So
I do think it's true even outside of esports winter, though. I think it's true in like you can see the same thing in game dev as well, right? Like if you took the skill set that makes you a good game dev, and you instead worked at, Oracle coding a database or something, I don't know, some kind of boring company, right? Like you could have a much more stable job that made more money, right? Like, but you want to do it in games.
You love this.
You get less money and it's more volatile, right? And the same with commentary, right? Like if you took a skill like that and you used it somewhere else, used it in some boring profession, you could get more money from it and less volatility, right? But like we all want to play video games all day. And that's the premium that you pay for using this skill set there instead.
And I mean, for me, like having psychological backups are also like huge. Like for instance, I'm not an amazing programmer, but I know how to program. So hey, maybe if everything goes kaput, if it turns out tomorrow I wake up and I'm officially washed up, a meteor hits the studio, it's gone, can't do game dev anymore. Maybe I could do some programming, or you know what? I really like education. I like math. Maybe I'll just do math tutoring. Or maybe I'll go back and try to teach at a university about the game dev and the streaming that I'm washed up and can't do anymore about. Maybe share a little knowledge there. These types of things I've not really thought that deeply about, but just having them in the back of my head is... There are times in my career where I didn't have that, where I was like, if I can't cast... This is a true story. I thought, if I do not get to cast these 2 MLG events, which I had conflicts for, I just like couldn't do them. I was like, if I can't do these 2 events, then what if I don't get invited back to like their championship at the end of the year? What if this spoils the ability for me to work with them the following year? Oh my gosh, I need to do this, because if I don't, I'm done. I'm not going to be able to make any money. I'm completely screwed. Actually, I had some conversations with friends where they're like, well, let's actually just walk through what you would do if that happened. And like, just again, having that in the back of my head is something that I think everyone should have in gaming or streaming or just in career in general.
Yeah, it's tough because I think almost always when you first sort of get into it, you don't like, there's a period of time at the start where the safety net isn't there yet, right? Like it can't be there when you're just when you barely move from not making enough money to have it as a career to making enough money to have it as a career, where it's like, if I lose one of these 3 sources of income that I currently have, like YouTube, Twitch, and whatever my other thing is, it's over, right? Like it's a calamity. But yeah, I think getting to that point as soon as you can is, I mean, if you can, right? Like, I don't know, the streaming space is littered with people that tried it and you just can't, like, it's really hard, right? Like it's really, you have to have a combination of like luck, skill, opportunity, playing the right game, like all these different things have to line up. Otherwise it doesn't work.
Yeah, how do you feel about like what it takes to be a successful streamer now versus not even all the way back then, but maybe some of the skills you need,
had
or
no competition, literally the only
or,
streamer.
Well, I mean, you're also creating what it is. Like when I started, there was a blueprint, kind of, not really a blueprint. Like you can't, everyone's stream is different, but you know that it's a thing. You know, you created it being a thing, right? It's a very different. But like I don't know, how do you think about how much the game has changed versus like how you'd get found nowadays? You could never just stream and make it. I don't think. Maybe you'd need some kind of small form content to pop off and get your name out there. Like I'm sure you've thought about that a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a pretty cheerful, warm person, I would like to think generally, but I have a pretty harsh opinion about streaming and content creation that boils down to the biggest reason why your stream or your YouTube channel is not succeeding is that your content isn't good enough, full stop. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, the algorithm is often discussed as this weird external thing of YouTube just throwing bad content at people. It's not. The algorithm is trying to represent human patterns to help people find stuff that they are more interested in consuming. It's a representation of interests in many ways. And I see so many people that have mediocre content that blame the algorithm, or they have mediocre content and they blame discoverability. If you think about something even like Among Us, took a while to pop off, but there's enough avenues in for things to get discovered. There's enough eyes that show up that once the content is good enough, I think you're okay. And I think that it's very easy to talk about second order qualities to a stream. Oh, to grow your stream, you should do collaborations. You should have a consistent schedule. You should make sure that your microphone sounds good. And you should get a Shure SM7B with a Rode PSA1 mic stand. Because look at all of us. We're cool. We use the same shit. Like, these are all fine, but I think a more helpful way to frame it is what makes you interesting every 10 seconds. Every 10 seconds of your video or your stream is a chance for someone to opt out and to tune into something else that will keep them entertained every 10 seconds for the entire video. And a lot of people I tune into their stream and they're just like reading a book in Morrowind. They're not talking. They're just sitting there reading a book and they're kind of like looking around. Okay, let's go over here. It's very flat. And 2 minutes later, they have a funny moment, and it is very funny. But boy, was it excruciating for 120 seconds. And I think that for a lot of young creators, it's very easy to get obsessed with the second order stuff. What are the patterns that I should go for? Should I have like subs rotating up? Should I get my alerts set up? How do I get the right sounds for the alerts? We're going to need emojis for the channel. But like if you just turned on a webcam, put yourself in the corner and we're playing a game, what would make you interesting every 10 seconds? Well, it would be something like the best gameplay that no one can get anywhere else. Like super high skill players in your favorite competitive game. It might be something like you have a really weird and unusual take on a game that exists. Since Factorio's coming out, or came out yesterday, I've been watching Factorio content in the week leading up to it. There's this guy named Michael Hendricks that played Factorio on the most extreme Death World settings possible. I've never seen anyone do this. It was an insane twist on the content. Speedruns also fall into this category. Or maybe you're just an extraordinarily good speaker, and you have interesting stories to tell. Or maybe you're just really, really funny and over the top. There needs to be something there. And this is where you can actually get different expressions, where there's lots of opportunities to do stuff. But I want to be a little harsh to anyone who wants to step into the space where you really have to look at yourself and go, Yeah, I tried to tell a funny story and I rewatched it. Man, that was fucking not funny at all, man. That sucked. I have personally tried to tell stories I think are funny and watched my viewership drop in real time. And this was during a period where I did need to pay rent. And I'm like, I'm so
Yeah,
fucking
it's
not funny. Maybe I'll
excruciating.
start skipping meals. I got to fucking not eat lunch for a week because I'm not that funny. Like, that's a weird thing for your brain to go through. But it's also very educational where you need to pay attention to the thing that matters. It's not like, oh, fuck, no, people are tuning out. I need to be more consistent with my schedule. I should do a collaboration, right? Well, no, maybe there's something about the content itself that has issues. So
Yeah.
that's my rant on that.
I think it's
Now,
telling
for you
that
to
like
say something. Okay.
go ahead, Dorki.
Go ahead.
No.
Okay, wait. Data, for you to say something like that, where you're like try to tell a funny story and for viewership to drop is like crazy to me, because like I just want to say, like, I absolutely love your content from like over a decade ago. I used to like watch your Fun Day Monday a lot, and some of the stories you've told were absolutely hilarious, and I just like loved every moment of it. So for you to say something like that is, it's crazy to think about.
I'm thrilled to hear you say that. And as an example, so like if we take my viewership then with my viewership now, a lot of the viewership, particularly around Fun Day Monday, it's simply higher than like it will be today when I turn on Factorio Space Age. And that's okay, right? I am, again, psychologically comfortable with that because, again, I'm doing a lot of game dev stuff. I really want to play Factorio. That's totally fine. But is it really that interesting to watch someone just play a game normally in the same way that if you're watching Factorio, you're probably going to play it normally? Or is it more interesting to watch a 2-hour improv of me casting ridiculous games of StarCraft under insane constraints as a weekly event? Like, obviously, this sounds better. I put in a ton more work to that. And to what you were talking about, it would generally take me about 6 hours to prepare for each 2-hour stream of Fun Day Monday. Not just going through the games and try to arrange them, but thinking about what I wanted to say. All those funny stories, almost all were practiced. I'd look in the mirror and I'd say them and I'd repeat them again and again and again and again and again to try to like get the cadence down just right. Then it would be live and I'd have to stay really focused for 2 hours because those were super high energy broadcasts. Like, that's the sort of thing where everything about what made Fun Day Monday get more viewership than I am getting, again, later today on Factorio Space Age, which all of you should tune into. Please subscribe. It's concrete. It's a very concrete statement about what the content is. It's not, oh, I just happened to not have competition. It's not, oh, yeah, I was more consistent then, or I was playing the more popular game then. Like, it's very easy to trick yourself into not looking the actual problem in the face of how do you make the content good.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest like things that's emblematic about this is just some of the biggest streamers are literally just webcam in corner. None of those frills, right? Like they just turn on the stream and they go, and the just go is entertaining, right? And then you have like there's a lot of people in the struggle that are in the the lower viewer count range that have all those like fancy alerts and subathons and dono goals, and you sub to them and they're writing things on the whiteboard or on their skin or things, and which can be entertaining, but like the frills, right? All the secondary stuff does need to be on top of a good base, otherwise it doesn't do anything, right? Like there's nothing there.
I remember I recently heard someone just talk about Summit this way, Summit 1G, about like, oh yeah, Summit, he's cool because he's just a guy who just turns on his stream and he's just a guy playing games, and that's why it works, because it's so relatable. And I mean, it was almost I was honestly quite offended the way they were describing this, just like it's a skill-free endeavor. He's just so naturally himself. And then you watch Summit and like his attention and ability to switch between what people are saying in chat and comment on that, but not spend so long commenting on it to come back to the game and deliver, at least what I was watching was an FPS where he's a very good player, and just seeing this like high skill commentary and these reactions. And I mean, like the energy level, I encourage anyone to watch a streamer do this, memorize what they do, then sit alone in a room and try to do exactly that for 5 minutes with no external feedback. And you realize just how much energy and how much focus and how much intention is behind what seems like a really kind of just casual, incidental dude turning on his webcam. And I think it's the sort of thing that, again, if you start trying to make yourself do it, you start to get so much respect for all, like anyone who, for instance, just taking Summit again, who has maintained that level of viewership for that long. It's because he's incredibly skillful as a broadcaster. Full stop. That's it. There's no luck or history or any of this other stuff going on. There's plenty of people that have spiked up and crashed right back down again. He hasn't. Not incidental. It's because he's fucking high skill.
All right. We are closing in on the end of our allotted time today, so I want to make sure that you have a chance as well to, if you have any topics or, stuff for us, or any areas you wanted to take this conversation, or side tangents that we discovered that we moved past that you want to revisit. Otherwise, we do also have a Patreon question we can get to as well. So if there's nothing there, that's also totally fine.
Trying to think of any what's a topic or question that I have.
I mean, it was our job to come with those, so you don't have to have any.
Oh my god! Oh fuck! Oh shit! It's too much pressure! Oh fuck!
We can cut all this out in post as well. Frank, our lovely editor,
internet, please.
He loves cutting stuff through the video and splicing things. He loves it when I do funny things with the audio as well. He's a quirky guy, a bunch of weird passions and hobbies.
I am curious for you three as hardcore players, because I've been doing this with some of my more hardcore RTS and fighting game buddies. So easy to get caught up in the meta and the high level stuff. What's your favorite dumb fun in WoW? Dude, what's sweet is this build, it's not competitive, or this zone doing this thing. Just dumb, raw, goofy fun.
Dude, the crazy part is the flying around on your dragon literally only got added to WoW 3 years ago. Before that,
so good.
The flying was just swimming but faster. It was just you could float, and it didn't have any of the dynamic movement and stuff. And I think it's a cop-out answer, but it's definitely the thing that I spend the most time just doing whenever I'm not actually doing anything, is just fly around, fly through the orbs. I don't know if you've seen this, but of the 4 new zones in this expansion, one of them is going to have little floaty orbs in it that you can fly through and get a little bit of the lowest level crest and resonance crystals. And I just spend hours doing that on random characters.
Yeah, I started doing dragon races because I just did not play WoW for a while because I was busy doing dragon stuff.
Yeah.
I think my guilty pleasure in WoW is joining a pug of a lower level, just people who play this game very casually a couple nights a week. They're just trying to clear normal maybe, or heroic. And I like just listening to those guilds that are very close and tight-knit just interact in their own natural habitat. I just think that's fascinating. And I think the WoW guild structure and the relationships people have within it are really cool.
That's awesome.
What about you, Dork?
Not a whole lot for me, honestly. I'm gonna be honest. I am a straight hardcore player. I don't mess around, but that's just me. So
what about your first month playing WoW? What was your favorite dumb fun thing?
Okay, I will say though, I definitely used WoW initially as an escape because I came from a competitive League of Legends background where I was one of the top players in NA, and for me, that game, it got to the point where I was not having fun with the game. I was addicted to the ladder grinding and just pushing for the best, right? It got to the point where I was not actually having fun with the game itself. And when I don't remember if it was a chat mute or I got a temporary suspension for basically being a toxic piece of crap. But that was just being part of the culture, right? If you're Legends, that's part of your culture to just call people brain dead and whatever it may be that will possibly get you suspended. So I got suspended from that game, and I was like, you know what? Screw this game. I'm just gonna play something else. And for me, MMOs were that escape where I just wanted to just chill and relax and do something more casual and just have fun. And obviously the competitive side of me eventually took over and I started to play this game competitive again. But even now, I don't really consider myself that competitive. I do try and I do go for these like competitive events and all that. But at the end of the day, I really do just play World of Warcraft for fun. Really, I mean, it's a weird thing to say because in WoW, a lot of people don't really play for fun. Like it's a thing we meme around a lot about. Like this game is not for fun. This game is like it's serious business.
I think for something I found super interesting about WoW players, because I played another MMO recently and streamed it, and it got like decent viewership, and it was really fun to do for like what we liked in the game about it. And I remember so many people coming into my stream and being like, "Is this the new WoW?" And what MMO players mean by that is
Is this the WoW killer?
It's not a. It's as if MMO players don't see games as a game you can have fun with for 2 weeks and then move on to another game. It's like, is this the game we're all going to play for the rest of our lives? That's what they mean with this is the new WoW. In fact, maybe these are the people that like are the ones that play a really, really awesome game like Helldivers 2 and then also see people naturally stop playing it over time like they do with any other game. And then they're like, this game fell off, and it's not
died in my lap on Wednesday.
It's not that people played this game, loved it, and then obviously stopped playing it. It's just this game must have been bad. I guess it wasn't good because people didn't keep playing it forever. And I think that's a very MMO, like I think that's a very WoW player specific thing where they've just become so accustomed to one game carrying all their entertainment rather than bouncing around and playing a bunch of different ones.
Well, because a large part of it is the value of a community perspective or aspect of these MMORPGs. To a lot of MMO players, their MMO that they play is their second life, and they don't want that to go away or die. And they put a lot of time and effort into it. It's not something they can just pick up and complete and move on.
I do want to point out that I think most people that use only one game to entertain themselves are usually the like most unhappy people towards that game, and maybe also the people that I think are the like least happy gamers. I think you're asking for too much from one game. Maybe that's an entire other discussion though.
You know, I don't know, maybe my brain was broken with StarCraft, where like in StarCraft 1, everyone just loved StarCraft 1 and thought it was awesome. That's like all we did. And I mean, even that carried over into StarCraft 2. And to your point, Max, like I played a game for like 8 hours and it was good. Like I remember streaming No Man's Sky on the day it launched. And I mean, everyone loves pointing No Man's Sky. It's like the controversy and like, holy stay fucked up. And like, I appreciate and understand that there were expectations set by the developer that the game didn't meet. But I remember playing it and being like, yeah, I thought it was pretty fun. Like, I don't have an urge to play it anymore, but I streamed for like 6, 7, 8 hours, and yeah, no, I think I'm good. I probably won't play it anymore, but yeah, it's great. And I think that like, I don't know, that's how every game I played pre-internet functioned. You would play it for like 12 hours and beat it and be like, nice.
Yeah.
And I think
that was fun.
Even games as service games, like even Artifact that Valve made, I played for 30 hours and had a blast. Thought it was awesome. I don't really want to play it anymore. Yes, I went back to playing Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone and things like that. And I think it is a really interesting challenge for developers to make those sorts of games. I think it's great for players to try to identify and seek that out. But I also just think it's like you say, like no game needs to be your every game every time. That's what I think.
Yeah, I think we actually should do I think the Patreon question would be really, really good for all of us to answer with the time we have left.
This is cool. Let's go Patreon.
Right. Super good. I didn't read it beforehand.
Well, it's topical. We kind of already covered this a little bit. So this one's from Civilian Raid Leader, and it says, I had to catch a taxi to the airport at 4 a.m. in the morning with my housemate once. Unfortunately for us, the taxi driver was a real chatty one, which, by the way, if you're a taxi driver and you pick somebody up at 4 a.m., even if you're naturally chatty, I would say maybe that's not a good time to be super chatty.
They should become a streamer.
Yeah, if you got the energy to do that at 4 a.m., I don't know. But okay,
was the taxi driver interesting every 10 seconds? That's the question.
Yeah, just drive in such a way that it's always interesting and you got people on the edge of their seats. He asked this question, if you weren't doing what you're currently doing, what would you be doing? And to follow up your answers to that, if you won the lottery, like $100 million plus, would you stop doing what you're currently doing? We already know the answer for Max. That's like a month's revenue for
Okay.
as a big streamer, but like for the rest of us for whom that's like, life-changing money, that's an interesting question, I think, to ask. Yeah. I don't know. I guess, Dorki, you want to field this one first? If you weren't doing what you were currently doing, what would you be doing?
I mean, I would absolutely still be doing exactly what I'm doing, except I would just have a ton of money, and I'd probably just like, I don't even know what I would even spend it on. I'd probably just like, well, one thing I would say is I would definitely like to travel more. That's something that has been on my mind for a while. But I'm just like thinking in the back of my head, like, oh man, but I am a streamer. What happens if I just go on like a 1 month hiatus and like this and that? But yeah, if I wasn't doing what I was doing right now, it'd probably be like similar to what Day9 said. I'd probably be like a software developer because that is kind of what I was doing pre-COVID. But yeah, $100 million, that'd be nice. But I would still love doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. For me, I would also do the same thing if I had $100 million extra dollars. I'm pretty sure I'd do pretty much exactly the same thing, which is cool. If I couldn't do this, my cop-out answer would be just do it in another game or do it in like Magic or something like that. If I couldn't do that, if I had to do something not gaming, disaster, absolute disaster. I don't know. It would be bad. Day9, you go next. The lightning round. We got to get you out of here in the next 6 minutes. So.
Oh my god, I'm going to answer as fast as I can.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh god. I would do something very brief. I think I would do almost the same thing if I got $1 billion. I think because I like streaming. I just like, for instance, like Factorio Space Age that I'm going to mention one last time. That is much more fun to play with a chat there to interact with, to have them poke fun at your designs and for me to valiantly defend my spaghetti that I've created. Like, I like streaming. I like game dev stuff, particularly annoying fiddly problems. I took last week off and I just fiddled on a personal coding project because I just think fiddly problems are fun. I think the difference between what I'm doing now and what I do if I had $1 billion or 100 million in the bank is, I think, one, I would give myself permission to take like a month off here or there at times. Because like I really like what I do, but again, there's that psychological pressure of, okay, you're not live this week. That's a risk. You got to go back live. Make sure you turn it on and make sure you're consistent. You need to communicate. And okay, let's spend the next month making up for the fact that I took a week off. I don't like that feeling. That's a reality of streaming. I would want to take a month off here and there, not just from streaming, but from the dev stuff. Because I mean, when you're a small studio with an unreleased product, there is money in the bank that is only going down until the product is released. It would be nice to take some of that and just be like, hey, everyone, I'll see you in a month. We're allowed to slow down for a month, something like that. But I think that if you said, okay, you can't stream or make video games at all, what would you do? I really like, I 2 summers in a row at my undergrad program, I did math research, and that was awesome. I really, really like that, where they're just like, hey, here's this weird math problem. See if it's provable or not, or if you can make any progress on it. I really like that. I think that's awesome. So some sort of research role, I think, would be sweet, especially if it's math or CS related.
Awesome. For me...
Wait, hold on, Max. Can I guess real quick? You would want to spend all your money on just like being able to create raid bosses and something like that, right?
Oh, interesting.
Like
no, that's a nice tangent. I actually wasn't thinking about that.
Are we allowed to do that in this fantasy?
yeah, just spend it on whatever. Yeah, like, okay, I actually might go with what you're saying over what I was going to do. Okay, but if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, currently, I would definitely, like, I've actually had this thought before, like, if just the gaming world completely dries up and it's like, this is no longer a viable job, my channel dies, I don't know, something, I would just go be a high school music teacher and probably just be happy for the rest of my life. They make no money, that sucks, but like, I would never have a boring day. I would love doing that. And if you won the lottery, like 100 mil plus, I wouldn't stop what I'm doing. I think he hit the nail exactly on the head. No matter how successful you are, like, you do feel like a need to continue to do that. And if you actually just had enough money where you're like, okay, if I never worked for another day in my life, I would be chill and live the way I want to forever. If you had that kind of money, which I guess is kind of what this question is asking you, you would definitely do things slightly differently. Like there's some days maybe where you wouldn't stream, or there's maybe a month where you wouldn't stream, and it wouldn't even really be go on vacation. It would just be like, I don't know, you'd probably come back and the quality of your stream would be higher. I genuinely love interacting with people on my stream. I oftentimes take shorter vacations because I actually get bored and I want to go back and stream. That I want to do it, which is obviously a really lucky job to have. But you are right. If you had 100 million plus, man, I would just like blow all of that money, as much money as I needed to live, and then I would just spend the rest of it making a game for exactly what I want. It would not be commercially successful. It would pertain to a very small amount of people, but those people like me would love the game, and then it would go under, and then we would just be broke, and that would be fine.
W.
All right, that's all.
That's amazing.
That's all we have time for.
That's my fantasy now. I take back what I said. That's it, man.
That's a good fantasy.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
It's been really great to talk to you. It's been a fantastic.
This is a really, really fun time. I'm so glad we got you on.
I had a blast. Thank you so much for the invite. I really appreciate it.
Mm.
Yeah,
it's been an absolute pleasure. I love your content, Day9.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. All right. We'll see everyone else in the bonus episode. But for now, thank you so much for coming on, and Poddy, see you later, everybody.
Adios.
Bye.